I'm Tass Mellis of The Starters.
This is Ben Golliver with the Open Floor Podcast.
Hi, I'm Kristen Ludlow from NBA Inside Stuff.
I'm OG Anunoby of the Toronto Raptors.
Hey, I'm Elena Donan, and welcome to the Double Clutch.
Double Clutch.
Double Clutch.
Double Clutch.
Double Clutch Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Double Clutch Podcast. My name's Mike Miller, one of your usual hosts. Tonight I am joined once again by Mr. Nick Whitfield.
Hey everyone, good to be back.
Good to be back indeed. And Mr. Hugh Hopkins.
Let's pop this bubble.
Do you know what? For the last week or so, I've had. You probably do because you're a similar age. Do you remember the One Hit Wonders shampoo with the we're in trouble?
I mean,
I do,
then.
but I don't think you will.
You guys are a similar age. I'm just a babyface over here. But yes, yeah. I do remember that song. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, but yeah, that's been in my head for about 2 weeks now. The closer we're getting, the louder it's getting. Of course, the NBA is almost back. Just before we start jumping into this week's pod, just a quick bit of housekeeping. If you're not already following us at Double Clutch UK on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, etc., we also now have a Discord server, which is discord.me/doubleclutch. So come join us there, join the conversation. But we're not just here to talk about that. We will mention it a bit again later. We are just 2 days away from NBA basketball, what I'm calling the pre-re-season, which starts on the 22nd of July with intra-squad scrimmages. Intra or inter? It's inter-squad, isn't it? No, I can't remember. Whatever it is, it's between squads. So we've got a bunch of actual NBA games which may or may not involve wearing the uniforms or the practice kits, and then we're just 10 days away from the season fully restarting on the 30th of July with seeding games, which is basically a 2-week sprint for playoff positioning and maybe a playoff spot for at least 2 teams. Guys, your expectations. Nick, it's been so long since we've seen basketball. What are you expecting from the bubble?
I think the only thing we can sure about is that we don't know what we're going to see. I think we can't be sure what kind of shape players are coming back in. We don't know how in touch players on different rosters have been compared to others. We don't know what chemistry's like, which teams are going to be rusty, which aren't. It's like, if there's any chance of an upset for an NBA championship, this is the year.
Hugh, what are your thoughts?
I think it's intra when a team plays against itself, and I think it's inter when teams are playing against other teams.
Yeah, that's what I think, but
yeah.
I couldn't remember as I said it, and now I just sound like I'm just agreeing with you, which is
That's
standard.
Sorry,
carry on.
Happens a lot. Yeah, I think it's gonna be chaos. Like all those videos that you see of kids playing down the park and just throwing up bricks and dribbling the ball off their feet. I think there's going to be a lot of that especially in these immediate games. It'll be very weird to watch, but I think we'll get used to it pretty quickly. And then I think it's going to be. I think it's going to like Nick. I think it's going to be one of the most exciting finishes to a season ever. Whether or not it should be happening morally, health-wise, is another matter. But I'm sure we'll get into all of that.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. I mean, so far, touch wood, so good on that front. In that, the 2 cases that have come in, they've identified going in from players have been stopped at the border, as it were, and turned back. And then everyone else who has unfortunately contracted the the virus, has had to wait before joining the bubble. I wrote down, in terms of expectations, the 2 words I had were carnage and mayhem. So a similar line of thinking to you guys. So many missing players. This is just insane trying to predict and project anything here, because it's like starting a new season, but where we've not had time to think about how people are coming into the season, because it's just been so long since they played. It's just insane. Were there any guys who aren't going to be there that sort of stood out for you guys? Obviously, you've got Avery Bradley, Trevor Ariza, Davis Bertans, half the Nets, Victor Oladipo, Bradley Beal. Then you're missing LaMarcus Aldridge and Bojan Bogdanovic through surgeries. Was there anyone sort of that stuck out to you as being a key factor for a team and really impacting their chances of postseason success, Hugh?
I think not having LaMarcus Aldridge increases the Spurs' chance of winning the championship. So I'm hyped about that, even though I wish LaMarcus Aldridge the best recovery. I think of the teams that could actually win something, I think it's got to be the Lakers, isn't it? There's been that not only have they lost Avery Bradley, like you said, but they've lost Rajon Rondo, and all of a sudden they're bringing in the likes of J.R. Smith, and the last time he was on a potential championship winning team with LeBron James, he ruined it for him. So I think we're going to see how quickly teams can lose their depth the moment the one player is out for whether it's turning an ankle or whether it's because they need to be in quarantine for 10 days. It's gonna have a lot of ructions, and I'm all for it. I don't want anybody to be ill, but it could be extremely exciting in terms of who's going to be going through each round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Nick. Hugh mentioned Rondo. Obviously, there have been other injuries. De'Aaron Fox is out. Kemba Walker's already complaining. He's already admitting that his knee is giving him issues. How much do you think this quick restart is going to impact player health?
I actually think it's beneficial. I think there's been a long enough layoff that I actually feel like we'll probably see fewer injuries in terms of overuse, but we'll see slightly different types of injuries if there are some, in terms of we're more likely to get things like pulled hamstrings or things that are like signs of like poor conditioning just because the guys haven't been in their usual game shape. But I don't think, touch wood, injuries will be the biggest factor. I think it's more likely like general conditioning, just like guys not performing to their usual level because they haven't had the like right amount of time to build up to this sort of thing. In terms of notable absences, I think Bradley Beal really stood out for me because it kind of killed the any sense of it being worth the Wizards being there in the first place. Equally, like the Nets, I think are going to be a bit of a car crash to watch, just because they essentially have like their roster is unrecognisable from what you expect going into this season. And I think out west, I'm going to pick an unorthodox player just because I'm a big fan. I think I would have liked Trevor Ariza to be there because you haven't seen that Trailblazers team healthy the whole season. So had they been going in with full depth and full health, that actually would have been a real. They actually would have had a real chance of catching up and getting into the playoff seeds. So, yeah, disappointed for Ariza not to be there.
I think there's going to be I think the best players, they're possibly going to extend their how good they are, because the best players obviously earn the most money. They have the biggest houses in the comfiest places. They have gyms in their back gardens. Those are the guys that are going to have been able to, stay in shape and get shots up and, have a run in a rural area, if they needed to go on a long conditioning run. It's the first and second year players and the younger players and the ones that are based in, it's a shame no New York Knicks are going to be there, but it's the ones in no, it's the ones in the big inner cities that are going to struggle because they're not going to have been able to get out as much, or the gyms won't have been open. So I think the gap between the good and the very best in the league, that's going to have only increased by the time everybody's sort of back playing full games.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point actually, because you're right. We've heard about the Lakers practices. We've seen the Instagram videos of LeBron working out during this. Then there's obviously people like Patrick Beverley who have called up Kawhi Leonard and gone, "Can I come and stay with you for a week?" and ends up staying 3 weeks, which which is where you're sort of going to see how much having the benefit of your own facility is gonna sort of make an impact. Then you've also, like you mentioned New York there. JJ Redick lives in Brooklyn, and he's still been going to practice facilities, like his own, well, not his own, but a court that he's hiring privately. So people are getting out there and doing stuff, but it's the guys like who are like either first or second year players, and they're in a flat or whatever. And we, even guys who have been in the league a bit longer but are with new teams like Patrick Connaughton rather, who is essentially just been dribbling a ball around his flat, which just sounds insane.
Probably pissing off the neighbours as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, Jimmy Butler's already done that in the bubble, where people are supposed to be in love with this game. So, speaking of the bubble again, players have left the bubble. A couple by accident. Bruno Caboclo broke his quarantine. Rashawn Holmes crossed the boundary. Do you think we're going to see any more of this sort of thing? It seems to have quietened down after those first two, but do you think anyone else is going to accidentally break their restrictions?
Players are going to be testing the boundaries and seeing what they can get away with early doors. And I think as soon as anything is high profile, they realise, we can't even walk past this line to pick up a takeaway. I think that's going to be cut out pretty early, especially as soon as games start, because the last thing a player wants is to be seen as not taking the game seriously and just putting a bad news story out there and taking away from the team. What I suspect we may see more of is what we saw already, where we may see Instagram models claiming that they're actually invited into the bubble by anonymous players.
Yeah, that was an interesting story and thread to keep a track on. We could go into it here, but let's not. Let's go. Okay, so that was players who left by accident. There's a couple of players who've left on purpose due to family emergencies. Zion Williamson, who seems to not be able to get any luck this season, has left to go home and tend to an urgent family matter, as has Montrezl Harrell of the Clippers. We've also got people like Dennis Schroeder. I love that name. He's expecting a child during the 8 seeding games, essentially. So he will be leaving the bubble to attend the birth and then returning. And if the Celtics are still playing at this time, Hayward is expecting a child during the playoffs, so he will miss time for the birth of the child. What sort of impact is that going to have in terms of disrupting the flow of a team? Because it's not just, you're not in market. It's not a case where you can spend time during the day away and maybe miss a couple of games or a couple of nights and be there. This is a case where you're going to leave and have to come back, and you're going to be out for a few days minimum.
Yeah, I think it's going to cause real issues, to be honest. But I'm with Nick in the sense that I think it's going to happen early, and the teams that are going to struggle are the ones like, the ones that don't stand a chance of getting past the first round. Even if they get into the playoffs, the ones like the Nets, the Suns, these players who are going to be coming and going and causing issues for their teams. I don't think they're going to do any damage anyway. Do you think any of the Lakers are going to defy LeBron? Any of the Clippers going to defy Kawhi? I do not see that happening. So it's going to be interesting, especially for those fringe teams, like you said, like Oklahoma, Boston, who arguably stand a chance of, maybe reaching a conference semi-finals. In the case of the Celtics, they might even go as far as a finals appearance. But arguably, I'll probably piss off some of the Boston Celtics fans, but Hayward might not be the most important player on that team.
Well, I think that's a given now, isn't it? Or
yeah.
Is he even the third most important player on that team?
Is he the fourth? Is he the fifth? They've got a starting lineup that he could be a great player off the bench, and he is obviously a starter level player. But I don't, and yeah, if they're gonna win a championship, then I think they need him. But if he needs to be out for the first 2 rounds, I think they'll be okay.
You know what? I don't really see that as a negative for Boston either. If Gordon Hayward is your 3rd or 4th guy, you're pretty good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they have a plethora of talent there at the minute. do either of you think that there should be an asterisk on this season?
So there's been this question that came up recently on one of the WNBA press conferences that I've been listening into. Someone asked Candice Parker if there should be an asterisk at the end of the season, and she said there should be an exclamation point because of how difficult it will be to get a team in one place without going outside the bubble, without having health injuries, without getting through all the issues of having crap food that they're not used to, prepared by random slugs at Disney World or Branderton.
I thought you were going to say by Mickey Mouse then.
No, but it's just as good as, I think there's going to be so many more challenges in the next few weeks than I think any team would ever typically have. So I think if you're gonna win this championship, there's going to be a greater sense of achievement, especially with all the social justice issues that are going on at the moment. I think if the player, if the person on the jersey, if you've won a championship and you're on that top podium and you're representing someone on your jersey that's not yourself, that's something bigger than you, I think that's going to have a greater social impact than it might do in any other year.
The thing I think is it's hard for us at this point to, whatever we think, I feel like the legacy of this year and how the championship winner is perceived will be decided by how it plays out in terms of health. If, let's say, for example, Milwaukee win a championship, but the Lakers, for any of a number of reasons, are without LeBron or Anthony Davis or both or whatever, I feel like it's inevitable that fans will look back at that and think, yeah, they won, but it wasn't quite right. A little bit like, and I'm sure Hugh will agree, in 1999 when the Spurs beat a Patrick Ewing-less or very injured Patrick Ewing in the NBA Finals. Big asterisk always in the hearts and minds of men and women and children everywhere.
I did wonder how long it would be before we got an asterisk on that championship up in the conversation. I'd actually made a note to bring it up as well because I like winding Hugh up about it. But the reason there are asterisks on that season,
there's not an asterisk on that season.
There is, but not. But I wind you up more. No, there is, but the reason I wind you up in it way more than I need to. The reason any time the season is not normal, and it's beyond control, then there has to be an asterisk. So call it 50 games. It's not a normal season. Call it 66 games. It's not a normal season, but it's nowhere near the same level of disruption, and therefore the level of the strength and of this asterisk is significantly smaller. This is me trying to verbally subtweet saying I'm agreeing that there shouldn't be as much of an asterisk on your 99 Spurs title compared to now, where we've played out 60% of a normal season. Then everything has just absolutely gone to, and we've had to pick it up and try and do something essentially for the sake of the league earning its TV money and things like that. There's so much disruption that I can't see any way where, even if the champion is crowned absolutely legitimately, there is not going to be a mark saying this was that year when that crazy thing happened. There's just I can't see any way around it. I think it's slightly different for the Wubble in that I will be playing the entirety of the season in this way, as opposed to picking up where the season finished 4 months ago. I just can't see any way around it from my perspective. And that's not to disrespect them, because I know that there is a huge amount of effort going into making this safe, making this secure, and putting on the game we love for fans around the world.
I think the thing that could be very unfair as well is, let's imagine a dark horse team wins the championship. Let's say, I was going to say Indiana, but that feels unrealistic. Let's say Luka Doncic plays MVP ball for months now, and to the point where Dallas wins an NBA championship out of the blue. I feel like unfairly there'd be more of an asterisk put on it than if the Lakers win this year or the Clippers win or Milwaukee or one of the favourite teams. So again, I just feel like it will be decided almost by who wins as well and how predictable it was or not so.
Yeah, I mean, imagine Portland, who made the Western Conference Finals last year, and I almost put an asterisk on that. Having lost Yusuf Nurkic, and then now they've gone from basically their season should have been over in April to they have a shot at making the playoffs with the strongest team they've had in about 14 months. It's just mad. It's absolutely madness to me. Anyway, let's move away from that because let's just move on from it because I think I could talk for hours about whether or not there should be one. Who to watch out for then? Let's go players. Is there anyone in particular you are keen to see back in action now that we're restarting? For any particular reason, whether it's to pick up where they left off or whether it's because they perhaps don't quite appear the way they once did. Nick, let's go to you first.
I have a few. My first is Ben Simmons, where I find Philadelphia a fascinating team because I like almost every player on their roster, but I don't really like them as a team. So I'm always fascinated to watch them and how they try and fit together. And there's been reports in the last week or so that they're running Ben Simmons at power forward instead of point guard, which I think is a really interesting look for them. And I actually feel like even if it means Horford steps out of the starting lineup, but they always have two of Horford, Embiid or Simmons in their front court for the entire 48 minutes. Along with Tobias Harris. I just feel like that's a really interesting roster and that sort of shift could play in the Sixers' favour. So I think that's my pick for the East. And in the West, I think I was just looking actually earlier today at how Carmelo Anthony looks like he is in unbelievable shape. And just because you are both Carmelo haters. Carmelo's one of my guys out west. Interested to see how he gets on with the Blazers. And I think my other one is just super predictable. I like watching LeBron James play basketball, so I can't wait to see him step on the court again.
The Melo point is great because he looks rather bouncy. I think he threw down a reverse just straight off the bounce a couple of days ago. And immediately I sort of grinned because it brought up memories of him in his Knicks uniform trying to throw down a one-handed dunk and absolutely just hitting the front of the rim with it and ending up on his butt. But the Ben Simmons thing, are we buying into this Ben Simmons is now a 4? Because for me, I think that this is just last season's version of the Philadelphia 76ers but rebranded. Because I can't see him being a traditional 4. Bringing in Shake Milton adds to the shooting. Obviously, small sample size, but from 3 in 20 games, he's hit 45.3%. But I still see Simmons being the de facto floor general. I still see him hiding in the dunker's spot on offense when he's off ball. And I still see them switching on D. Isn't this just... all they're doing now is putting a positional label on essentially a guy who's pretty positionless?
No, I don't think so. Because what I think is they can put him in the dunker's spot in their offense, and they can bring Shake Milton in, who right before we stopped was looking incredible. He was shooting some crazy percentage from 3, which is like the opposite of
45.3.
Exactly. So I think. I just feel like it frees up their offense a lot and creates more spacing than when Simmons is running the point.
But isn't that just what JJ Redick did last year as well? Although much more off ball than Shake will be.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Hugh, you missed all that because of technical difficulties. Any players for you that are standing out as someone you want to see back on the floor?
I think Dame, I always look forward to seeing anyway. And like you said, I think with we spoke roughly about it earlier, but with a rejuvenated roster, I think he's going to be even more determined than perhaps. There was a lot of talk from him about you've got to make it worth my while if you want me to come in the bubble. And ever since then, I don't know. We haven't heard much from him, but you've also seen Zach Collins and Nurkic, just putting up some shots, looking good. And yeah, I think he's going to come fully loaded for the restart, and he's always one of the most entertaining players in the league anyway. So I'm particularly looking forward to seeing not just Dame but the entire Portland team. I think they're going to be quite focused.
I think that's fair. I've got them down on one of my teams to watch. For me, I want to see what these new skinny versions, skinny Jokic, skinny Harden, can do. Especially given that Jokic is, and this is slightly not basketball, but because Jokic obviously has recovered from COVID, and there's talks now of how long it can impact you from a respiratory perspective. I wonder how. I mean, he was never a big cardio guy anyway, but I wonder if this has impacted that at all. As Giannis back from a knee injury, there's a few teams here, like same as Ben Simmons with his back injury. There's a couple of teams here that are benefiting from this layoff because they're getting their stars back fully healthy. So let's go on to teams. Hugh, which teams are you particularly looking forward to seeing?
Well, surprise, I am actually looking forward to seeing the Spurs. I touched on it earlier, but I think LaMarcus Aldridge sort of locked them into a style of play before, but I've always thought that actually they need to run through DeJounte Murray, through Derek White, and essentially run a bit more than they typically have in a Greg Popovich era. He loves to run a system, and I love to watch it because it's some of the most beautiful basketball around. But I think that game plan will have to go out the window a little bit now. So it'll be interesting to see what system they run with. And if they do run to the extent that I'm hoping they do. I'm a big fan of Jakob Poeltl. His defensive numbers are incredible. He was arguably one of the best defensive bigs in the league this year, but he just hasn't played the minutes to warrant any discussion, on an All NBA defensive level. But I think he's going to be incredible with the extra workload, and looking forward to seeing the Spurs run up and down the court a bit.
Yeah, I've got to admit I wasn't expecting to see them playing this late in the year. That's for sure. The way it was going. Nick, who on in terms of team stands out for you?
In the East, I'm interested to see Miami. They have a lot of really good complementary pieces. And they're also pretty deep. Adebayo's developed into a really interesting, flexible, like modern big man. Still got like Dragic to run pick and roll. They have Jimmy Butler, who even if the whole team can't play, they could put him with Goofy and the janitor, and he would probably enjoy that more than anything else. They also have Myers Leonard, who is one of the most entertaining guys off the court right now with his beer chugging. Have you guys been following that?
Yeah, definitely.
So really, it's impressive stuff. In the West, there's two teams who I'm interested in. There's probably three actually for different reasons. Denver, I think, kind of have gone under the radar in terms of they were actually the third seed in the West and no one's talking about them. Obviously love Jokic and how he plays, but they have a pretty deep roster. They're going to be coming in healthy. I like Denver. I like Utah for the spacing they have, the number of shooters and playmakers they have who can put the ball on the floor around Gobert. Interesting to monitor that chemistry between Donovan Mitchell and Gobert after what happened right before the game stopped. And I think my other team I'll just give a quick shout out for is Houston, who are always one of my second teams that I follow. But just to see how, and obviously hoping Russell Westbrook and James Harden come in. I think Harden, we're recording this on Monday, I think Harden has only just practiced with the team and Westbrook's obviously still out. But hoping those guys come back fully healthy, just because from an interest standpoint, it's interesting to see how far they can take that small ball.
Yeah, it seemed like just before the season stopped, I think they had a 4-game put my teeth in a 4-game losing streak, and it kind of felt like they'd been figured out. But I think there's still a way to go with this experiment, and I'm keen to see that as well. Obviously, you want every player healthy, everything like that. I'm keen to see the Suns actually. Given how hot they started this season, I know there's a real long shot that they make it, but do you not remember the start of this? Huge shrugging at me because hates Western Conference teams that might be better than the Spurs.
They're not better than the Spurs. They're just not. I just think they've. Yeah, they were pretty decent at the start of the year, and I was hopeful. I think on the very first top 5 MVP race that I did of the season, I think I put Booker in as number 5 because they had a winning record. They were playing attractive basketball. They've had some great moments. The big rotation is incredible, quite frankly. And I think they do have a bright future, but I just don't think they're going to figure it out for this season. I think they're going to need.
Sorry, carry on.
I think they're going to need a fuller training camp. They definitely need to make some changes, maybe even a change at coach, and I think they could be a decent team for the future. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it all plays out, and I hope Booker does stay with them because he is a guy to build around, and I think they're putting the right pieces there. But they're literally put in to make up a number. I hate using the word literally when it's not literal, but they were thrown in. I think
figuratively.
They were thrown in to make up some numbers, and because Booker is exciting. But the moment they lose one game, they're essentially out of the playoffs, and I think they're just going to be boring as hell, those games to watch, those preceding games or whatever, because if they lose one, they're just not going to give a crap. And they're going to lose one.
I'm not expecting them to. I'm not expecting them to do well, and they've got a tough schedule. But I'm just half of me is just there's a part of me that's like, come on, they started the season so quickly. They're a young team, so theoretically, all things being equal, they should pick it the speed of the game much quicker than the vets who have also had this layoff, assuming, of course, they haven't got the LeBron facilities, things like that. So that they stuck out to me. We've obviously mentioned Portland. Barring Ariza, they've got a full complement of players. And I actually think the fact that they managed to get them this close to the playoffs is a testament to, and I don't often give credit to Neil Olshey because he stitched the franchise a few years back, but I think that's a testament to what he's been able to do as GM, and also just someone who I do love, Terry Stotts, a testament to his abilities as a coach. And I'm not saying either of them should win their respective Position of the Year awards, but they certainly should get a bit of credit for keeping this team within sniffing distance of the playoffs.
So when you say this close to the playoffs, they're 26 and 39.
Yeah, but have you seen what they've dealt with all season?
Yeah, I agree, but I just, I think.
How many games back on the playoffs are they? 3.5 off the 8th seed, along with 3 other teams. I'll give you that. 3.5 games back, having been depleted of massive impact players on that roster. I just think that they could shock some people. Don't think they're going to win it, obviously. Don't think they're going to go particularly deep, but I'm just keen to see how different this team is compared to what we've had so far this season. Out east, nobody's excited to see the Nets. This steaming pile of trash that will be the Nets.
Who's playing for them? I just have no idea.
Jamal Crawford. There seems to be a lot of people getting excited about him coming back, which is great. And people are saying, great player. Scored 51 in his last game as a Phoenix Sun at 39 years old. What they failed to tell you is that it was an 11-point loss to the Mavericks, and that team that year, the Suns team, finished with the 3rd worst record in the league, tied with Cleveland, and 2 games ahead of Knicks. So. People just remember that headline, and they're like, Jamal Crawford, he's going to drop 50. Yeah, but L.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say about Crawford is he's never put into like best handles conversations, but his
Should be.
handle is filthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? In fact, we do it now. We had a question in through the Discord server, because this is a point I want to make on it. So the question from Matt Hardy. Jacques Vaughan goes into the bubble with 2 games as Nets head coach under his belt and a decimated roster, full of players who probably won't be on the team next year. What can he do at this time to make a case for him staying on as head coach? I've got a few points, but one of the ones that, just because the Crawford bit came up, essentially, if he wanted to suggest or tinker with a Kyrie-led offense, isn't Jamal Crawford a ball-dominant, trigger-happy, doesn't like to pass, exceptional handle kind of player? Isn't he the ideal Kyrie 0.5 substitute?
Who's the KD in that situation, though?
There is no other KD. This only purely works on a Kyrie for Jamal Crawford basis.
Rejected!
Nice work, Kirk.
Oh, man. No one's buying that. No one's buying that. Okay.
The thing is, I think if they were doing that, they'd probably put Caris LeVert in that spot.
Yeah, but it's still not KD.
No.
So what do you think Jacques Vaughan can do to make his case as to why he should be the head coach in Brooklyn next year?
You go, Nick. I got nothing, man.
I mean, it's a boring answer, but the only thing they can do is if they, I think probably to recreate a little bit of what we saw with the Nets last season in terms of the morale they had, the overachieving with the roster they had. No one's expecting this Nets team to set the world on fire in the bubble in Disney, but if they can win a few games, run a few others close, I think that's probably as much as anyone could do with that roster.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I've put in my notes that it'd be unfair to charge him with actually winning anything, like even a few games with this decimated roster. But if he can show some creativity and some ingenuity, we've seen how Nick Nurse is the flavour of the league in terms of his coaching style and the way he gets creative, adjusting to injuries, which is essentially what the Nets are living with at the minute. And their 2 stars happen to have relatively injury-prone careers. Even the way that Nurse is got this team playing without a superstar this season, I think if he can do that sort of thing, basically maximising the talent he has to hand. Again, it's things like relationship building. If he can put those into place, that's only going to work. Even though the 2 main guys are not in the bubble, if he can show that he's a player's coach, I'm sure that'll go down well. And then let's face it, with Kyrie and KD, the offense is going to take care of itself. So it's what sort of defensive schemes can they pull together? They're sort of for me what he needs to look at.
What I will say for Jacques Vaughan's chances at returning as head coach, he probably does have a pretty good relationship already with Sean Marks. They spend a lot of time on Spurs benches together. I think they did crossover in the when they were working on the Nets. Did they both play on the Nets at some point? I can't remember. That my history is evading me.
Vaughan definitely played for the Nets.
But I got a feeling Marks might have done, but I'm happy to be corrected on that. But I think they've come up through the same coaching tree. They will have crossed paths a lot during their career, whether they're whether actively or not actively. So I think I reckon we probably will see him back, simply because I think Sean Marks is he knows what type of system he wants to set up, and I imagine Jacques Vaughan probably thinks along similar lines, to be honest. It's just whether or not they get the player sign off, I guess.
Yeah, not to put a bad taste in anyone's mouth, but in between 2012 and 2015, when he coached the Magic, anyone want to guess what his winning record was percentage-wise? Let's go with percent.
For the Orlando Magic, 2012 to 2015.
Yeah. Just a percent.
20 something, less than that.
I'll take that. 26.9.
I was going to guess 25. So yeah.
Well, there you go. You'd have won. In fact, you can win because it's not a competition.
Congratulations, Nick.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's get into some predictions then. So, the Clippers are current number 2 seed, and they lead the number 3 Nuggets by 1.5 games. Just a bit of a conference breakdown. The next 4 teams, so the Jazz, then OKC and Houston, who are both tied at 40 and 24, and then the number 7 Mavericks are all within 4 games of the Nuggets. So it's a real tight bunching in the middle of the Western Conference again. Utah, who are the 4 seed, is only 1 game ahead of OKC and Houston. If we move over to the East, the Raptors are the current number 2 seed. They lead the Celtics by 3 games. The Heat trail Boston in the 3rd seed by 2.5 games. Miami is 2.5 games over numbers 5 and 6, the Pacers and the 76ers. This is a lot of jargon that no one's going to listen to. And the Pacers and Philadelphia have identical 39 and 26 records. So again, there's a bit of a cluster in that conference. Your predictions then. Let's start off out west. Who is going to make the playoffs in the West? We're only really looking at... Dallas is basically safe, so we're only really looking at Memphis or someone else. Who have you got? Anyone jumping in ahead of the Grizzlies, Nick?
I feel like predictions, because of what we've already talked about, are so difficult. If it feels like you're making really uneducated guesses. Portland has
the best kind of guesses.
Yeah. Portland has both, and I think this is a really interesting one because as good as Memphis have been, and Ja Morant in particular has been spectacular, one of the most fun guys to watch in the early part of this season. Portland, as we talked about already, are coming in fully fit. They've got the veterans. They've got winners in Dame and CJ. They've got Nurkic coming back, who before his injury was an absolute fulcrum to their offense. But also New Orleans is an interesting team, and we haven't really talked about them at all. Ingram's having a career season. Zion is being added back into that lineup. Lonzo continues to improve. And they're only one game behind Portland.
As a solid veteran. Yeah.
So I feel like it's a toss-up between Grizzlies have the advantage in the win column, but out of those teams, I think I would take, and this is all assuming health, Portland to take it just based on the veterans on that team. But it wouldn't surprise me if any of those teams were the last spot.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like we don't know. A lot could still change on the rosters. You know, there could be people have to sit out because they cross a line, or they bring in an Instagram model. So we still don't know exactly. But taking a quick look at Trailblazers versus Memphis Grizzlies schedule. So the Trailblazers, they play the Grizzlies. They play Celtics, Rockets, Nuggets, Clippers, 76ers, Mavericks, and Nets. So I think there's possibly only one gimme in that, and that's depends on what's happening with the Nets, but that's the final one that they play. The Grizzlies play the Blazers, they play the Spurs, Pelicans, Jazz, Thunder, Raptors, Celtics, Bucks. So it gets increasingly harder as you're going through, but actually they could steal a few games to begin with, build up a bit of momentum, and those teams at the end, Celtics, Raptors, Bucks, I imagine they're going to have their seeds secure by that point, so they may end up putting out, easier lineups. Their non-starting 5. So I think, I think we might see the Grizzlies up there, providing the Spurs don't beat everybody.
Oh, tumbleweed. I agree with what everyone's saying. Assuming Zion gets back into the bubble and plays, I think the Pelicans have the easiest schedule they could possibly leapfrog. They do have a very, very good young team, and it's scary what they could be in a season or two. But yeah, it's a crapshoot. I just wanted to put you on the spot, really. So let's carry on doing the same. Anyone got any ideas on who they think is going to be in the conference finals or the finals or even the winner, or is it literally from here on out? This is just going to be a roller coaster.
Give me Bucks Clippers. I thought Clippers. In the finals. I thought Clippers at the start of the season were going to be in the finals. I also thought Philadelphia were going to be there.
Same as what I had.
I think it's going to. I mean, to be honest, listening to what you guys were talking about with the 76ers earlier, I think we shouldn't be writing the 76ers off. They are loaded with talent, and if Brett Brown can just get through to them and just say, just hold it together just for 2 months, guys, I reckon we could see a strong run towards the conference finals and the finals. But that being said, it's not an easy route. You got Miami Heat, Boston, Milwaukee. They are all going to be in fighting in such close quarters. But I just don't see, if Giannis has come back healthy, he's had plenty of time to rest that knee now. He was due to come back before the end of the season when we still had a functioning calendar. So I think he will have been. I think he will have been fine, because it wasn't the worst knee injury in the world. If they are firing on all cylinders, and that system that Coach Bud has, he could be. They could just pick up right where they left off, and yeah, I think we're going to see Clippers go in there as well. They're too strong for me in the West.
I will take the Lakers just because I think AD, and this is maybe controversial, is maybe LeBron's best ever teammate, especially as a big. And I never write LeBron James off. And if anyone will come into this in better shape than they've ever been, it will be LeBron James somehow.
That the difficulty I see is in that Western Conference final. It's got to be a battle of Los Angeles. I've gone Clippers. I just think they're so deep, and I know the rotation's shorten up. But you've got three of the best wing defenders in the league. Easily there.
The thing I see with the Clippers is that they're not just deep, but they present so many lineups. Whereas I think with the injuries and the new players that have come in, that shortens up the variety that the Lakers can offer. So yeah, they're going to be great, and I think that's possibly going to be the Western Conference Finals. But I think the depth and the versatility of the Clippers is gonna win out this year.
Yeah, it's. I agree, and it kind of worries me that the Lakers are sort of relying on potentially having guys like J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters, and LeBron is the one guy who can mold and control these kind of players. But
is that NBA champion J.R. Smith you're talking about?
That is the same NBA champion J.R. Smith that Hugh correctly pointed out earlier in Game 1 of the 2018 Finals. Absolutely crap the bed on getting Cleveland a 1-0 lead in the series.
To be fair, George Hill did miss the free throw, so it's not entirely his fault. But
well, no, it is entirely his fault, because everyone misses free throws occasionally. But if you've got like a few seconds on the clock, why do you dribble it out to half court and just run the game out? But especially when your one purpose on that team is to shoot. That is your sole. That's the only reason you're in the league. Because But anyway, so you've picked the finals there. So who do you think's winning it, Hugh? You sort of hedged on Clippers, Milwaukee as the finals.
I don't know. That's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm asking.
I've been saying the Clippers are going to be in the finals all year, and I just don't see. I want the Bucks to win, but I just think it's going to be too difficult to beat Kawhi Leonard.
Mm-hmm. That's what scares me. If those are the two teams that meet up, Kawhi is the one guy who managed to slow Giannis last year. So yeah,
There's
I'm
much
with you,
more
Clippers.
championship experience as well on that team. I say much more, not much more, but the key players have championship experience.
Nick, you went at Lakers, didn't you? That was to win everything.
Yeah, I do hope they play the Bucks in the final though, so we can have all three Antetokounmpo brothers in the finals.
That would be amazing.
Who's commentating? Do we know who the commentators are yet?
I'm guessing it's just going to be the normal commentators, as in for that level it'll be Mike Breen, Mark Jackson, and JBG. Surely, I wonder if they'll do it remotely.
Hopefully, Marv Albert won't be trying to pronounce 3 levels of Antetokounmpo.
Well, at that stage, the likelihood is only one of them's going to get on the court anyway.
Yeah.
But okay. So
Thanasis is a beast.
Yeah. So a couple more things before we go. As I mentioned at the start of the show, we've I say we, Kirk, who is the guy producing this at the minute, and dropped in that really solid Tim Kitzrow quote, set up a Discord server for us to help grow the NBA community. It's essentially a chat app with the ability to host multiple channels. So we've got things like kicks and whatever, trash talk, and we've even got things for those people who like the BBL specifically and want to talk specifically about that. So if that's you, you're more than welcome as well. We've been on it a couple of weeks now. It's growing pretty quickly. We've got a few guys in there like NBA UK Fans, Hoop Genius, Below the Rim Podcast, Boston Brit, High Tea Hoops. So if you want to get in there and talk to the people who are creating content on the NBA, you're more than welcome to join us. It is discord.me/doubleclutch. You guys want to say anything on Discord at all? It's a different thing. I'll give you that. But I think once we get used to it, it's going to be really, 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 really good. There's some really cool tech in there that I think we're going to exploit in the next coming months. But what are your guys' thoughts on Discord?
I think it's amazing that there's a place where being a basketball fan in this country can feel a bit of a lonely experience if your IRL friends are not also hoop heads. So having this place where any time of day or night, probably once the games get going again, there's somewhere where you can log in and chat to other people who are also obsessive about the game, I think is really cool.
I don't know about you guys. I'm on Twitter as you guys are, but I also have other interests in life. Believe it or not, much to the surprise of my fiance. But yeah, I follow a lot of other things on Twitter as well, and sometimes it is just useful just to be able to get rid of all the non-basketball noise, and Discord definitely does that. I'm enjoying it so far.
Yeah, so come and join us. Once again, it is discord.me/doubleclutch. One last thing before we go. We've had some articles go up recently. One of them was an exclusive with Nick Nurse, courtesy of Mr. Hugh Hopkins. We didn't even talk about the Raptors at all.
But they're gonna be good.
So why haven't we spoken about them? Come on, Hugh. Tell us why we're wrong. Why are we overlooking them?
Because they have potentially an all-defensive player at every position. This year, the players that were sort of perhaps a little held back by Kawhi, because Kawhi, as great a player as he is, he does have that sort of LeBron feeling to his game these days, in the sense that if you've got a great team and you put LeBron on it, that great team is not going to be great for the reasons that it was great before LeBron was there. Kawhi is that level where you can have a great team, Kawhi will go onto it and he will raise that level, but the system won't look the same. Now that Kawhi is gone, they still have an excellent system. They have possibly a top 3, top 5 coach in the NBA in Nick Nurse. Pascal Siakam is starting to become, I don't want to say a Kawhi-like player because he's not a Kawhi-like player at all, but he's picked up the offensive responsibility of what Kawhi was offering last year. Everybody in that starting 5 units, Kyle Lowry, Norm Powell, Fred Van Vliet, and OG Anunoby, Britain's own OG Anunoby, they've all increased their scoring output to more than make up for what they've lost from Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard. They have obviously they won the championship last year, so they all now know how to reach that championship level. They also have a FIBA world champion in Marc Gasol, who, as old as he is and as tired as he might be, he's just had a long time off, and he is still the best passing big man in the game. No, he's not. No, he's not.
Yeah.
He's a top 3 passing big man in the game.
Denver area code.
He's a top 3 passing big man in the game, and he's one of the best screen setters still in the NBA. And I honestly
former
think
defensive player of the year.
And yeah, potentially a defensive player of the year. Well, certainly previously, isn't he? But honestly, so many players on that team could lock up so many of the best players in the league that I think it's going to be. I think they're going to give teams fits. Whether or not they'll win it, I don't know, but I think they'll be in a battle in the conference.
It's the classic offense wins games, defense wins championships.
Yeah, I think so. And creativity on offense can make up for that lack of reliable. Here you go, Kawhi. Here's the ball. Just do your thing. It'd
be interesting to see who steps up as the isolation guy in crunch time. But you can read Hugh's article over at doubleclutch.uk. If you're not already following us, as I said at the start of the show, it's at doubleclutchuk on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We're on as well, so you can find us there. We're now on Discord as well, as I mentioned. So come and join the conversation. We'll speak to you again shortly. 10 days till the season starts. Let's go.